Good afternoon, Calvary United Methodist Church and the larger community around Walcott. Brothers and sisters, I wanted to take a moment in the middle of the week to clarify some things that you have certainly heard on the news. The governor has taken the first steps to returning us to some sort of normal operation. This is an anticipated step, and regardless of whether you believe this is the right time to take such a step, it's inevitable that it happens sometime. There's a few things I'd like to talk about today to clarify what we all heard on the news yesterday. Now, first of all, not every county in Iowa is permitted to ease the restrictions brought on to help mitigate the COVID-19 epidemic. 22 counties with rates of infection that are still growing are excluded from this easing of restrictions. Scott County is one of them. The governor has said that she will continue to assess the situations in all counties and make changes as appropriate. For instance, a county that was experienced reduced infection rates might begin to escalate again. Their restrictions will return if that's the case. The governor might ease Scott County's restrictions if the infection rates begin to decline, if and when, I should say. The hardest part of this is going to be to stay in our own lane, to remain in our own county, regardless of what's going on in our neighboring counties. We can't be under restriction in Scott County and go to the next county over and go out to eat, for instance. I mean, we could, but it would be the wrong thing to do. Second, it's completely appropriate for the governor to make these decisions. But the governor is not the only authority to whom we are accountable. We as United Methodists are accountable to our denomination, to our annual conference. Moreover, we as followers of Christ have an obligation to be as concerned for our neighbor and our neighbor's welfare as we are for our own. So it's absolutely appropriate to be extra vigilant in our care for one another, adding restriction where we believe there is a need for added restriction. We can't reduce the governor's restrictions, as some pastors in the news have done, but we can make additional restrictions to what the governor has mandated, and we should do so when we believe that they are called for in our context. Now, the bishop issued a letter yesterday afternoon that answered some of my own questions about what the governor's announcement means to us at Calvary United Methodist Church. Here are the highlights of her letter. She writes, "Dear friends, in light of the expectation that positive cases of COVID-19 will peak in Iowa in the next few weeks, I am strongly encouraging all United Methodist churches in Iowa to refrain from in-person worship until June 1st, when I will reassess. I'm going beyond the governor's recommendations, despite my previous stated intention of following Governor Reynolds' guidelines around worship. Our first priority as disciples of Jesus Christ is to protect those who are most vulnerable, which includes the elderly, the very young, and those with underlying health conditions. Even though we all want to return to our churches and be a part of the body of Christ in person, I believe that it is more important to assure the safety of our communities from further infections." Now, the bishop doesn't mention something that I'd like to add at this point. You know, the main reason for even trying to reopen our economy right now is a strictly practical one. It's an attempt to mitigate the damage to our economy, which has been brutalized by this emergency. Exposing our church to the risks of coming together for worship, while we want this with all our hearts, this would do nothing for the economy if we were to do so. It just makes more sense to remain vigilant in this way, for us to safeguard the future for ourselves, the larger community, and the economy. This is something that we can do for the economy. The bishop continues with these words. "In the midst of our own personal desires to get back to normal, our faith requires us to seek the good of all by practicing good judgment and common sense. And out of a concern for the welfare of our neighbor, we must continue to stay the course by being diligent around social distancing and refraining from being in large groups. At the same time, there are ample opportunities to safely engage in mission and outreach in our communities. Bishop Lori concludes her letter with this. She says, "These are not easy times, yet the body of Christ remains strong and faithful and is making a huge difference in our state and around the world. I will keep you informed in the days ahead. May God bless you and keep you." Bishop Lori. So, brothers and sisters, our current fixes remain in place at Calvary United Methodist Church. What we can do in this situation also remains unchanged. We can make sure we're staying in touch with our loved ones, our fellow Christians, and our neighbors. We can look for ways to reach out safely into our community to be a blessing to those same loved ones, fellow Christians, and neighbors. And we can spend some time listening every day for the voice of God, remembering why we do what we do. Not because we must, but because we love. We are Christ's love in the world with a face. So let's put a smile on that face and love, love, love. God's peace to you all. And just to be clear, we will be continuing the online worshiping until the 1st of June. God bless you.